Counsel have boasted on TV that to counter the undisputed evidence of what actually happened in this case, you'll see video clips. They'll show video clips of other politicians, including Democratic politicians, using what they consider incendiary language.
And we're not supposed to. We're not supposed to watch that, huh?
Sort of equivalency.
Yeah.
Or then
right.
In contrast that
he wants us to ignore that they said, get in their faces, don't allow them any peace, fight them, tell them they're not welcome in America anymore and to get out. Remember that?
So let me be crystal clear. President Trump was not impeached because of the words he used, viewed in isolation, without context, were beyond the pale. Plenty of other politicians have used strong language. But Donald J. Trump was president of the United States. He sought to overturn a presidential election that had been upheld by every single court to consider it. He spent months insisting to his base that the only way he could lose was a dangerous, wide-ranging conspiracy against them and America itself. He relentlessly attempted to persuade his followers that the peaceful transfer of power that was taking place in the Capitol was an abomination that had to be stopped at all costs. He flirted with groups like the Proud Boys, telling them to stand back and stand by, while endorsing violence and sparking death threats to his opponents. He summoned an armed, angry, and dangerous crowd
every state
that wanted to
there
keep
was
in power, and was widely
protest at the state capitol that the news media did not report to you. And not one of those places had any problem. The only problem was at the at the U.S. state capitol, where American law enforcement and American military tried to take over the Capitol because of the coup attempt by the Democrats.
The Congress.
That's what they're not wanting you to know.
Insurrection, engaging in extraordinary
law enforcement and U.S. military tried to take control of our own Capitol
because of the high office he held.
Joe Biden did commit high crimes and misdemeanors,
targeting the vice president and reiterating the very same lies about the election that had launched the violence in the first place. And he issued a tweet 5 hours after the Capitol was sacked,
by law enforcement and U.S. military officials.
We all know that context matters, that office and meaning and intent and consequences matter.
You're right.
Simply put, it matters when and where and how we speak. The oaths we sworn and the power we hold matter. President Trump was not impeached
over your right
because he used words that the House decided are forbidden or unpopular. He was impeached for inciting armed violence against the government of the United States of America. This leads me to a few final thoughts about why it's so important for you to hear this case as authorized and as indeed required by our history and by the Constitution. President Trump's lawyers will say, I expect, that you should dismiss this case so that the country can move on. They'll assert that this impeachment is partisan.
I don't want that
and that the spirit of bipartisanship and bipartisan cooperation requires us to drop the case and march forward in unity. With all due respect, every premise and every conclusion of that argument is wrong. Just weeks ago, the President of the United States literally incited an armed attack on the Capitol, our seat of government, while seeking to retain power by subverting an election he lost.
He said, fight for your government, fight for your America. He didn't say commit insurrection. He didn't say go kill a bunch of people. He said protect America. And so American law enforcement and American military went and protected the Capitol from the coup attempt by the Democrats trying to overthrow the U.S. government.
a disaster for America's standing in the world. And President Trump is singularly responsible for inciting it. As we will prove, the attack on the Capitol was not solely the work of
for the last
extremists
5
lurking in the
years,
shadows.
they've told us how bad
Indeed,
President
does
Trump
anyone
was,
in this
how
chamber
awful he was, and
honestly believe
your all's hatred
that
for
but
him.
for the conduct
And
of
we
President
finally got
Trump,
to the point to where, you know,
that a charge
we know
in the
you're
articles of
lying,
impeachment,
and the news media is
that
helping
attack
you.
at the Capitol would have occurred. Does anybody believe that?
No, we don't believe
And
you
now
at
his lawyers
all.
will come before you and insist,
You're
even
a
as the Capitol is
Democrat.
still surrounded with
You
barbed
wouldn't know
wires
the
and
truth
fences
if I
and
slapped
soldiers,
it
that
across
we should
your
just move
face.
on. Let bygones be bygones. And allow President
I don't
Trump to
think so.
walk away without any
I want you
accountability,
behind bars,
any reckoning, any
traitor.
consequences. That cannot be right.
You're right.
That is not unity.
You're right.
That's the path to fear of what future presidents could do. So there's a good reason why this article of impeachment passed the House with bipartisan support. The principles at stake belong to all Americans, from all walks of life. We have a common interest in making clear that there are lines nobody can cross, especially the President of the United States. And so we share an interest in this trial where the truth can be shown and where President Trump can be called to account for his offenses.
What about the Democrats and the FBI?
William Faulkner famously wrote that the past is never dead.
Why not Nancy
This
Pelosi?
isn't even the past.
She tore
This
up an
just
official
happened.
document
It's still
of the
happening.
United States
Look
government.
around you as you come to the
She's
Capitol and
supposed
come
to be
to
the
work.
custodian, and
I
she
really do not
had
believe
no
that our
penalty
attention
put
span is
against
so
her.
short,
Nothing.
that our sense of
For
duty is so
destruction of
frail,
property that wasn't
our
hers.
factional loyalty so all-consuming,
She's
that the
supposed
president
to have
can
lost her
provoke an
job
attack
over
on
that.
Congress
She's
itself
still
and
there.
get away with it just because it occurred near the end of his term. After a betrayal like this, there cannot be unity without accountability.
I know it.
And this is
We need
exactly
to put
what the
Democrats
Constitution
behind bars
calls
and get them
for.
out of America or
The
something.
framers' original
Good
understanding,
God, you traitors, or
the
something
chamber's,
else.
this chamber's own precedent, and the very words used in the Constitution all confirm unquestionably, indisputably, that President Trump must stand trial for his high crimes and misdemeanors against the American people. We cannot continue down the path of partisanship and division that has turned the Capitol into an armed fortress. Senators, it now falls to you to bring our country together by holding this trial, and once all the evidence is before you, by delivering justice. Thank you.
Justice.